So now we'll continue the first chapter of the economic survey, that is declining. Now in this we'll discuss about a new index, that is Baltic Dry Index. Baltic Dry Index. So Baltic Dry Index gives the information related to the shipping freight cost. Very, very important. You may get it in prelims. What is Baltic Dry Index? Okay. So here the Baltic Dry Index is saying now the prices or the cost involved in the shipping is coming down. Definitely that is a good move. Definitely that is a good move. But if you see during the COVID-19 time, it was very high, because in the post-COVID recovery, because all the entire economy has in standstill position. When we are recovering, everyone need these ships. So there is a huge demand. The demand has increased the cost of shipment. That is why the ship freight cost increased in the post-recovery, post-COVID-19 recovery phase. But anyhow, after that it stabilized, now it is stabilizing. Even if the world goes, even if there is a slowdown in the global growth, definitely that is an advantage to India, because there is no much economic activity and you can use these ships at a cheaper cost. Okay. Share of exports in GDP expand despite the global slowdown. So despite global slowdown, if you see the imports and exports, okay, there is no much progress in exports, but there is a lot of progress in import. Not that we are importing more, but the import prices are increasing. Import prices are increasing because we are taking a monetary value as a percentage of GDP. Okay. India growth projections by various agencies for financial year 23. So various agencies like S&P, ADP, Moody, Fitch, Goldman Sachs, World Bank, RBI, they have projected various growth figures for India. On average, if you take, it is showing 6.9% in the financial year 2023. That is, it is going to end with March 31st. So this is 6.9%. That means it is the highest growth of the major economies of the world. That is really a good thing, because growth shows that the level of expansion. If you are expanding more, means definitely it will attract the investors, both domestic and foreign. Because even in this critical time, the Indian economy is having an inherent capabilities, inherent strength to expand its size. That means people are ready to consume, country is ready to export, people are ready to work, the facilities are conducive enough, the financial institution, governments, other institutions, they are all supporting the growth, because we are growing at a 6.9%. We may grow at 6.9%, that is in forecast, but this is highest. The growth of exports may have moderated in the second half of financial year 23. However, their surge in financial year 22, the first half of financial year 23 induced a shift in the gears of the production process from mild acceleration to cruise mode. So actually, if you looking into the GDP components, it is very important to understand what are the factors of GDP growth. The factors are 4, that is consumption, government spending, private investment, exports and imports. So if your GDP has to grow, there must be an increase in any of these things. Initially, in the post-COVID-19 time, there is no enough domestic demand. Because people are already suffered with the income losses. Some people have lost their job. Some people are in highly uncertain condition. Some people have already spent a lot of money for their COVID-19 treatment. So there is no much domestic demand in the post-COVID-19 time. then India has taken an opportunity of exports. It started doing more exports. When you are doing more exports, to meet the exports, you need to increase the production. That production creates the employment and it adds the value to the GDP. That is how our GDP sustained. Our GDP sustained. But now because of this tight monetary policy, now a lot of people are estimating like there will be a recessionary conditions. Now you cannot expect your exports to grow to that much. Then what you have to do? Immediately when your exports are reducing, going to reduce or reducing, already it started, reducing means then you have to focus on another leg. What is that another leg or another component? That is again consumption. Now we have already recovered from the economy, we have given vaccination, we have opened our economy, now all the sectors are open and government of India has given some measure, some sort of financial help or took some sort of measures so that the economy is now on right path. Now the consumption is increasing. That means even though the exports are reducing, now the consumption start increases. That means the domestic demand is increasing. So the another leg of the economy is supporting the growth. So that is the policy that we are adopting. That is how we are moving it in a sustainable way. That is what mentioned here. When exports are moderated, domestic demand is helping. When domestic demand is moderated, exports are helped. So these two components are playing an important role. So and this domestic demand increased because if you see the per cap, if you see the private consumption, it is 58.4%, and also that private consumption increased because of the rebound in contact intensive services such as trade, hotel and transport, and vaccination, fiscal support. So these are all measures taken by the government. Because of that, the domestic consumption increased. And if you see the private consumption is highest since financial year 2015 in the first half of the year. You can see the level of private consumption. The level of private consumption, that is C in your GDP calculation. Okay. So definitely it's a good thing. Now, growth in bank credit to housing complementing falling household inventory. Housing bank credit growth. See, housing sector is important because housing sector has an ability to stimulate more than 200 sectors in the economy. That is the multiplier effect that the housing sector is going to have, because it requires steel, cement, electricity, plastic, labor, machinery, like that, everything. So the credit to the housing sector is increasing means now the housing activity has started functioning well. That means it not only creates the employment, but it is also stimulate the other sectors of the economy. That is a good move. And if you see the unsold inventory and inventory overhang, see, unsold inventory means you have already constructed a house, but it has not sold, it is still lying vacant. That is unsold inventory. What is inventory overhang? Inventory overhang means of the total houses you are constructed, how many of them are still vacant? How many of them are still vacant? That means how many are sold and how many are vacant. And if you see this graph, when you compare it with the total houses, the number of vacant houses rate is coming down. That means you are constructing more houses, you are selling more houses. The vacant houses number is coming down. That means you are growing at a faster rate, you are constructing at a faster rate, you are selling at a faster rate. The vacant one is declining means the houses are selling at a faster rate. That is what inventory overhang. So these are all good indicators for the economy. Yeah. When it comes to the capital expenditure, yes, the capital expenditure financial year to 2021, because you can see this is a COVID-19 year, but still a little bit increase, but there is a quantum jump, and this year again it has increased. Finance Minister has increased. Here it is 35% increase, Here it is 33% increase. Okay. And for that, union government has started a 50-year interest-free loan. 50-year interest-free loan for the states. Apart from increasing the capital expenditure, capex, by the union government, union is incentivizing the states to increase the capital expenditure because it creates the asset. Okay, so that is what it happened. Capex doubled in the past 5 years. They have taken April to November. If you see in the last 5 years, capex is increasing. That is a good trend. That is a good trend because you are increasing the investment on productive items. And private investment, yes. See, one thing is when actually why governments will invest, why government should invest, certainly government have its own responsibility. Second one is the government expenditure will always have a crowding impact. When government starts spending, that will incentivize the private people to spend. So now the government expenditure is increasing, but what about private investments in GDP? You will write C plus G plus I, no? So I plus export minus imports. The G is increasing. What about I? Private investments. Is it increasing? The data shows like it is increasing. But is it increasing to the level of the increase that took place in the government expenditure? May not. But still it has its own little bit crowding impact. So government expenditure is increasing, private investment is also increasing. Buy-in tax collection, if you just remove this COVID-19 impact here, but otherwise there is a consistent increase in both direct and as well as the GST collections. Direct tax and as well as the GST collection. Revenue expenditure continuously increasing. Definitely it will increase because it is to day-to-day purpose. The only thing is the rate at which it is increasing, that we must contain. And double-digit growth in bank credit to MSMEs. Yes, if you see the credit growth to the MSMEs, it is double-digit. It increased. And even to the large industry, a little bit increase. Even to the services, it increased. Even to the non-food credit also, it increased when you compare it with the January 21. Yes, that is important because MSMEs are having a potential because they are contributing to the 1/3 of the GDP and also they are contributing to the 40% of export. They create a lot of employment. Definitely MSMEs will play an important role. Okay, so yes, this is also increasing. And even it is not, why actually the credit to the MSMEs or credit to the other sector is increasing? First of all, the government of India's initiatives is the first one through different schemes. Second one is the bank health itself is improving. The bank health itself is improving. See, extended ECLGS, emergency credit line guarantee scheme of the central government, that aims at providing the loans to the MSMEs. Non-performing assets being fast-tracked for quicker resolution. So that is why the non-performing assets are coming down. And capital to risk-weighted adjusted ratio remains comfortable. That means they are maintaining a required amount of capital to adjust any risk that has improved the financial condition or the efficacy of the bank. So that has led to the disbursement of more loans. You can see the scheduled commercial banks, private banks, foreign banks and public sector banks. Gross non-performing asset ratios declining. In foreign banks there is a small aberration. It's not the same path of private, but here also it is same, declining. That is a good move. Non-performing assets are reducing. When it comes to the provisioning coverage ratio, provision coverage ratio in private banks it is very high. But whereas when it comes to the PSBs, it is not following the same trajectory. Okay, there is an increase and decrease. Here also it is something like a stagnation. But in private sector bank, they are having more provision. That means from profit they are keeping some amount of money out to sustain the losses that are going to occur on the credit disbursement front. Rising corporate bond yields. Yes, when in the market, when the bank interest rates are increasing because the banks are started increasing the more interest rate. When interest rates in the banking system is increasing, certainly it has its own impact on the bonds. So the bonds will also follow the same trajectory. That is the reason why the bond yields are also started increasing after countries started tightening their monetary policy by increasing the interest rates. Okay. Inflation expectations anchoring. Yes, this is, they are expecting some inflation 3 months ahead, 1 year ahead, that they have shown. And this business inflation expectation, this is not something inflation in the business, but this is an inflation survey conducted by the IIM Ahmedabad, business inflation expectation. So they will conduct a survey for the future prospects of inflation in the economy. This is about that survey, just remember this. India's inclusive growth, definitely. So growth is important, but inclusive growth is much more important. So that must gives the benefit to the people. Otherwise, there is no use. So it must provide the benefit to the people. So one important aspect to measure the inclusivity is the unemployment. So during the COVID-19 time, the unemployment was 20.9%. If you see the trend, yes, here little bit aberration, but otherwise continuously it is declining. It is not declining continuously in the last 1 year because there is some aberration increase, it happened here, but otherwise it is declining. So unemployment rate is declining, and unemployment rate at 4-year low. Unemployment rate at 4-year low. This is 4-year low. So now if you take this point, I have already explained. Initially there is an increase in exports that created growth. After that, the pent up demand that was already there in the economy, that has started releasing. Now the domestic consumption started increasing. So now the domestic consumption is driving the GDP. Earlier exports have driven the GDP. Now a swift rollout of the capital expenditure, because our revenue collections are also increased. That is why we are increasing our capital expenditure, that creates the employment and that drives the economy. So your G is increasing, your C is increasing. Earlier your E increased, exports increased. Okay. Now apart from that, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Act has been rapidly creating more assets, that has created employment and also created more assets. PM Kisan, so which benefits the households covering half of the rural population, 6,000 rupees per annum, that help the farmers in a distress. And Pradhana Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana, yes, we have given a subsidized food grains to the poor people along with a free food grain. So some component is free, some component is subsidized. Earlier it was total free, but anyhow that free food grains, that what we have given, has contributed to the lessening of impoverishment in the country. And this is important. According to a UNDP report of July 2022, though there was an inflationary tendency in an Indian economy, that would not have a low poverty impact. That would have a low poverty impact. That means that would not have much impact on poverty, according to UNDP. Because of what? Because of well targeted support. See, when you are calculating the inflation, you will take the market prices. Let it be market price is 40 rupees a kg or 50 rupees a kg per rice. Now when you are calculating the inflation, we will take the market prices. So that is how you will say, like, oh, inflation is 6%, 7% or 8%. But what we are doing, we are taking the market prices for calculating the inflation. After that, who are the affected sections? To those affected sections, we are giving a targeted benefit by providing the subsidized food grain, or by giving some cash handout, or by providing some targeted employment. So because of that, the burden on the poor people has reduced. They are getting some cash, and moreover this 40 rupees is not there on these poor people, because they have they got subsidized food grains. So that is why UNDP, even government of India is having with this stand, but UNDP has substantiated that the level of inflation in the Indian economy would have a low poverty impact. And government is saying the inflation numbers that what we are releasing, it is theoretical, but the actual impact of inflation is not same on the poor people because of the well targeted support that the government is providing. GST paid by the MSMEs, that shows the performance of MSME. And improvement in rural welfare indicators, apart from economic indicators, they have taken the children who are stunted and the children who are wasted and the children who are underweight, all the numbers are reduced from NFHS 4 to NFHS, National Family Health Survey 4 to 5. Okay. So on social indicators also we are doing good. Just have an idea about this number. Stunted is 35.5, wasted is 19.3 and underweight is 32, and definitions are important. Stunted means height to age, how much height that you have when you compare it with your age, and wasted means how much weight that you have compared to your height. Underweight means weight to the age. These three are important. Okay, weight to age is underweight, wasted means weight to height, and stunted means height to age. Outlook. So now they are with this background. So in the background you have seen like India is the fastest growing economy. The debt level is not that high compared to the other countries. The depreciation is also not that high compared to that of other countries. The level of forex reserves are comfortable. The credit disbursement to the MSMEs is good, and some social indicators we are doing good. Financial sector like banks are performing well. Inflation is at the tolerable level. Like we are having all positive indicators. Now with this they are giving the outlook for 2023 and 24. So what is that outlook? The outlook, the positive things for India is the private sector, both financial and non-financial, was repairing the balance sheets. So in the previous decade there was a problem. Problem of increasing non-performing assets that created the balance sheet of both companies and as well as the banks. Now we are repairing it. Now the capital expenditure is increasing. Yes, capital, you call it as capex cycle. Use this word, catchy words. So there was a capex cycle that is growing in this country, and the structural reforms that we have taken. The government of India has taken various steps like goods and services tax, insolvency, bankruptcy bureau, transparency, efficiency, honesty. These are all the things that government of India has brought. So apart from these structural and process reforms, the capital expenditure increased, and private sector, both financial and non-financial, they started repairing their balance sheets. So these are the positives for India. But there are some challenges. The challenges you are all aware. Just now I said it is a multi-decadal high inflation that led to the monetary tightening, that led to the outflow of capital, and that led to the depreciation of currency that has its own impacts. That is one challenge. The second challenge is the prolonged strains in the supply chain. We don't know what will happen to this geopolitical conflict, Russia-Ukraine war. If it continue for some more time, and it may have its own impact on the supply chains, that is another important concern. And again, the global growth itself is reduced. The forecast says that it is reduced. That was given by the World Economic Outlook, IMF. And risk to the current account balance stems from multiple sources. Yes, just now we have seen current account deficit, because goods and services, on the goods and services front, there is a high deficit because the import prices are increasing, exports are not increasing to that extent. And strong domestic demand amidst high commodity prices will rise India's total import bill. Okay, now I said in the domestic economy the consumption is going to increase. That means domestic demand increase. Okay, if domestic demand increase, definitely that drives the GDP growth. But if the domestic demand increases on imported items, then that will have its own impact on current account, because you have to pay more dollars to import. You have to pay more dollars to import. So that is one important thing. Okay. So that is another risk. So the risk is, these are the different global challenges that we have. But however, so by comparing both positives and negatives, the scenario of the subdued global growth present in two silver lining. So even in this critical time, there are two silver lines or opportunities for India. One is, if suppose the global recession or if the global slowdown took place, then definitely oil prices will stay low. That is one important, because there is no much demand for it. If there is no production, there is no much demand. So that's why oil prices will stay low, and then the current account deficit will definitely in a better position, because you no need to pay much prices for the oil imports. So that is one thing. Now another thing is, the recession tendencies may increase the capital inflow. Suppose if the world countries are facing a recession, definitely the interest rates in India are high compared to the other countries, and India is growing at a high, India's growth is the fastest compared to the other major economies. So definitely it will attract the capital flow. So on the one hand, your import bill reduces, that will have its own impact on, positive impact on current account, and at the same time these global recessionary conditions will help us to attract the foreign investments, that is portfolio investments. So that will create a positive sentiment for India. So these are the two positive things that survey is saying. Now so with this positives and negatives and the advantage that we have, the survey is projecting like, in the financial year 24 we may grow at 6.5%. In the financial year 24, in the upcoming year, we may grow at 6.5, and they have given a range of 6 to 6.8%. They have given a range of 6 to 6 point, but to be precise, they are giving 6.5. So this is the level of growth rate in the next year. In the current year, we may grow at 7%. And why there is a decline? Decline is because of global impact. That global impact has severely taken care by the economic survey. So economic survey aware about the global conditions, and economic survey is also aware about the opportunities that India is having even amidst of the global challenges. That is why they projected the growth rate. This is a real growth rate, not a nominal. If you add inflation to that, you will get it in nominal. So this is the outlook that is provided by the economic survey to the next year. So this is something related to the outlook, the state of the economy, and as well as outlook for the next year. Okay, thank you.
Amrita IAS Academy.